What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we have UFC 318. It is a legends-only affair in the main event between the Diamond from Lafayette, Louisiana, Dustin Poirier, who will be making the walk for the final time in his career in a trilogy against Max Holloway. And we all know DP is up 2-0 over Max, and Max is looking to avoid being skunked in another trilogy as he was 0-3 against Alexander Volkanovski, and I think that is a big motivator for Max Holloway. We have DP who's ready to ride off into the sunset. He's had an unbelievable career to where Max Holloway, if you hear him in these interviews, this man is motivated. He's committed to the move to 155 pounds, and it sounds like he is ready to go on a run in the lightweight division. We are in for an all-time classic in the main event because everything I've heard from the Diamond leading up to this fight, he was asked in an interview on American Top Team's YouTube channel of, look, man, you want a first-round KO or do you want a war? And Dustin's like, listen, man, normally I would tell you that I want a first-round KO, but for this one, it sounds like he is putting on the Marvin Hagler war hat, and he is going to go out there and leave it all on the line. I got goosebumps, man, as I'm saying this right now. Cannot wait for the main event. Two of the ultimate fan favorites. I don't want either guy to lose. Right, so I hate that I have to pick somebody in this, in this fight here, but it's going to be a banger. Super excited. And listen, man, the UFC, we got to give them credit. They ended up really turning this card around because I remember at one point we were like, man, for DP's retirement card, I mean, this thing's looking like an Apex Fight Night, right? And I mean, some Apex Fight Nights were better than the damn pay-per-view they were putting together here, but they have turned it around. We got Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov in the co-main event. That is an absolute banger right there. We got Kevin Holland versus D-Rod, Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. We got some outstanding fights all over this card, some really, really fun matchups. I have a good feeling about my predictions on this card, man. I don't know. There's certain matchups I see on here, and I'm like, I think we're gonna do well, man. So let's hop into this straight away. I'm gonna give you my full card breakdown along with a pick for every single fight on the card. Let's hop right into this, starting with the very first fight of the evening between Judice and Nicole Caliari. Listen, I'm going to be honest. I don't know who the hell is going to win this fight. I really don't know who's going to win this fight because, everything kind of tells me that, look, Judice, she's coming off of a very impressive win. Her last time out, she gets the head kick KO over Dubin, and I like what I've seen from Carly, right? She's 26 years of age. I feel like we're seeing some nice improvements in her game. She's very rangy on the feet, 5'7", 68-inch reach for the flyweight division, so she has a nice length advantage over her opposition. But what we've seen from her since coming into the UFC, man, like she lost to Caliari by split decision, who, it was able to do very well against Nicole Caliari, but it was a split decision here, right? So they got a former opponent here. She goes out there, she loses to Gabriela Fernandez. She's fought good opposition, right? And then she's coming off the head kick win over Dubin, and I think if this fight stays on the feet, Judice should win all night long. What scares me here is Nicole Caliari, even though she is coming off of a competitive loss to Ernesta Caricaidi, who's a very long-rangy opponent for the weight class as well, she's facing another rangy opponent in Judice here, right? But she does have a good ground game. We saw that on the Contender Series. She was able to take Corinne down and submit her, and prior to the UFC, I mean, she's got excellent jiu-jitsu skills. If she's able to bob and weave, get to the inside, get to the body lock, trip you, take you down, I could very much see Nicole Caliari pulling this one off and finding a submission here, but I am going to go with the 26-year-old Judice. I feel like that she is really starting to improve. She has power on the feet, and I feel like that range, if she can utilize those front kicks, bang the kicks from the outside, jab, stick, and move, I think Judice can outscore Nicole and win a decision here, but she has to avoid getting taken down at all costs in this fight because I think Caliari definitely has the advantage there, and she is definitely a finisher if the fight hits the floor. And, I think Judice has like a softball background or something, so she's a very good athlete. You see that when she fights. I'm going to go with the athletic, rangy fighter in this one, and Judice. I think she wins this one by decision, but I could very much see Caliari winning this if she's able to get her down. Next up, we got Bruno Ferreira versus Jackson McVey. Now, a lot of people are so quick to go, Bruno Ferreira, and I kind of felt that way, right? And maybe I'm overthinking it because this tends to happen where you feel so confident on a pick and then you kind of get in your head, you're like, am I missing something here? And that's kind of how I feel with this fight, right? There's another fight on this card I feel like that about. We'll get to that, but Look, Jackson McVey, he was supposed to fight, I believe, at International Fight Week, right? They cycled through a couple different opponents. It was supposed to be, Cedricus Dumas, and then it was supposed to be somebody else, and it was a disaster. He didn't get to fight. So this guy has essentially been in a camp for a long period of time, which can be good, right? You're dialed in for a fight, you're ready to go, but sometimes that can lead to extra wear and tear possibly on the body. So I think that that's some things to consider here, but let's pretend that those aren't necessarily things. What are we looking at? This is a damn hard debut for Jackson McVey, man. A damn hard debut. This isn't just some, guy that he's going up against, some old head or some guy that's got a little bit of experience here. This is Bruno Ferriera. This is a super dangerous guy, man. And who is he losing to? He gets KO'd by Nursultan Ruziboev. And I've said at 185, I think Ruziboev is a problem. He's rangy. He's fast. He's got legit power. He's KOing Phil Hawes. Got the nasty finish over Dustin Stoltzfus. Got submitted by Abus Magomedov. And then he was able to go out there and submit Armen Petrosian. But you got to remember in the Abus Magomedov fight, it's like I think Bruno fatigued and then Abus just weathered the storm, took him down. Bruno, I think, had him hurt. So Abus is showing he's a ranked fighter at this point, right? He is a very game opponent, fixed the gas tank issues. So I don't think that these are bad losses here from Bruno Ferriera. This guy is a dynamite thrower, man. He's got power in his hands. He's got a very good ground game as well. He can finish you if the fight hits the floor. And this is a lot for Jackson to handle here. But I will say this. I went back and watched the tape with Jackson McVey. He fought over in Shamrock FC, comes over to LFA, and you guys know, man, I feel like fighters that come off of LFA, they usually do pretty well in the UFC, and especially in a debut, it seems like they're very prepared for these moments, and he got a submission win with a Bravo choke over Ben Fowler. I was impressed there, but again, 3-2 opponent, was able to go out there and finish Garner with some knees and punches there, but listen, Jackson McVey's a finisher. He's a fast starter. He can knock you out on the feet, and he loves to get to the grappling, man. He is a fast starter. He's aggressive, and if the fight hits the floor, he's got some good ground and pound, excellent submissions. He's got an array of submissions, which I really like that for him in this fight, and I got to be honest, I would not be shocked if Jackson McVey wins this fight. One bit. I think if there's a guy that I've seen on the regional scene that can come in and win a debut against a really game opponent here, I think Jackson McVey absolutely has a chance to finish this fight. But if you're going to come in and try to meet fire with fire, that's a little bit of a disaster, man, because Bruno Ferriera, he's a heavy hitter. He's got dynamite in his hands, and I think that his ground game is good enough to kind of stifle what Jackson does well. And look, Jackson's young, man. I expect him, even when he loses this fight, I expect him to still have a career in the UFC. This guy is good. He's 6'4", got a 77-inch reach, so he's going to, try to be the longer guy. But I just think the power and the ferociousness of Bruno Ferriera is going to give Jackson some problems. But like I said, do not be surprised if McVey wins this fight, man. I feel like out of a lot of people that have made their debuts, he is one of the better guys that we have seen recently coming over from LFA. But I am going to go Bruno Ferriera by knockout. I think that Jackson comes in, tries to close the gap here. Bruno's going to march him down, and Bruno throws those big winging ooga booga shots to where I could see McVey catching him with something, maybe dipping underneath and taking him down. But right now, what I've seen, I got to go with the guy that's been showing it against really good opposition in the UFC right now, and Bruno Ferriera. So I do think that he is able to get the finish. But like I said, don't sleep on Jackson McVey. Man, this guy, I know he's making his debut. He's still very skilled, in my opinion. Next, we got Ryan Spann versus Lucas Brzeski. Weird fight here. Weird fight because both of these guys, they desperately need a win. And I feel like whoever loses this, I mean, I know the heavyweight division, it's thin, right? It feels like you really got to do some shit, man, to get cut from the UFC heavyweight division. I mean, they're desperate for contenders. They're desperate for fighters, it seems, in the heavyweight division. But for me, this comes down to a very simple kind of breakdown. And that is the fact that both guys match each other very well in terms of the physicality. But we all know Ryan Spann is a former light heavyweight, right? And we see when these fighters move up in weight classes, they tend to have a technicality advantage, often a speed advantage. And I think that's what this comes down to in this fight. Now, I will say this. This win on this drought here a little bit for Brzeski, I mean, he went out there and beat Walter Walker. And I know that, Walker came in and he was he was very out of shape. He was a fat blob that night. And I think if you run that one back, Walter Walker, he might heel hook this dude too, right? So, it's still a win. But, outside of that, he's getting KO'd by Mick Parkin. And I know Mick Parkin's good, but he just lost to Marcin Tybura, right? He got finished by Kennedy and Zechku. And I feel like if you're getting hit and you're getting put away by those guys, I mean, I know Ryan Spann, it's kind of been like, what guy's going to show up? Because if Ryan Spann shows up, this guy, I mean, he's dangerous. He's got serious power in his hands. And if you take a look at, he was out there, he submitted Ovince St. Preux, the knockout over Dom Reyes. I mean, and who's he losing to? Right at light heavyweight. Got subbed by Nikita Krylov. Lost a split decision to Anthony Smith. I mean, that's not that great, but, got finished by Bogdan Guskov. I mean, he's losing to good fighters. And then, okay, so he gets finished by Waldo Cortez Acosta, who's showing he's actually really good in the heavyweight division. So for me, this comes down to the fact that neither guy's particularly great, right? They both lack defensively. They're both very hittable. And I think if Brzeski can kind of drag Spann into, the later half of the second round, maybe the third round, maybe he could wear on him and pull something off. But I just think that the power of Ryan Spann is going to be a problem in this fight. If you're getting finished by Kennedy Nzechukwu, I think is actually, solid. I know he just got subbed by Walter Walker. He's been really good since moving up, right? And you saw Brzeski had some issues with the range and kind of the speed, right? For the light heavyweight coming up in Nzechukwu. Ryan Spann already having a fight at heavyweight against a dangerous guy in Cortez Acosta. There's not much danger with Lucas Brzeski here. This is going to be Ryan Spann moving forward, getting his boxing going. This is a must-win, in my opinion, for Spann. He's got the better offense. That's what this comes down to for me. But like I said, we've seen Spann. Sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. But I think if he shows up, he brutally KOs Brzeski in round number 1. Give me Ryan Spann to get this one done, man. Moving on, we got Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. This is an interesting fight because if you would have asked me a couple years ago what I think of this fight, I kind of just would have been like, Jimmy Crute is a guy that I've written off so many times, right? I feel like, and for good reason, to be fair, right? I feel like we've all kind of written off Jimmy Crute, right? I mean, this guy, when's the last time Jimmy Crute's won? He hasn't won a fight in over 4 years, right? The doctor stoppage against Anthony Smith, gets finished by Jamal Hill, right? The decision loss to Alonzo Menafield, right? And then they ran it back. Guillotine choke, comes back, he loses to Adolfo Bellato, but to be fair, he actually put up a good fight against Bellato, right? But I've said if there's ever a big dopey goofball in the heavyweight division, light heavyweight division, it's Adolfo Bellato. And you got to see that in this last fight against Paul Craig, getting up, the ref scared the shit out of him, right? That whole deal that just happened in his last fight with Paul Craig. Listen, Adolfo Bellato, he's a big dopey idiot, right? And you saw what Jimmy Crute was able to go out there. He's still dangerous, and Jimmy Crute just went out there and was doing pretty decent in that fight here, right? And Marcin Prachnio is a guy that's kind of got this karate-like stance. He throws a lot of fast kicks, or you got to be careful. He's actually super dangerous and close, can whip those kicks up out of nowhere. He's got some good short shots on the inside, some elbows, and look, he's got decent speed, right? And I think that Marcin Prachnio, he's a guy that people often overlook a little bit, but what we've seen from him, right? I mean, he goes out there, beats William Knight, who was a big, jacked up dude in this division, was able to outscore him, got subbed by Vitor Petrino, beat Devin Clark. He's coming off of that loss to Modestas Bukauskas to where he got choked via arm triangle. And listen, man, I know Modestas isn't a world beater. He's got decent power, and, in terms of a ground game, I think Jimmy Crute is someone that could replicate a similar game plan in this fight. And we saw Prachnio, he landed some good shots against Modestas before ultimately getting submitted, and I think it's that simple. If this fight stays on the feet, I very much see where Prachnio can keep him at range, spam a bunch of kicks, outscore him, but I think the better boxer here is Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute does have power, right? I know that we kind of written this guy off, but if he can get to the inside, get to the boxing, shut down the kicking game, I think that Jimmy Crute wins this fight, but I think the biggest difference is the ground game. I ultimately think Jimmy Crute is able to take him down, and I think he gets a submission in round number 2 over Marcin Prachnio. But if he cannot get the takedowns and he cannot land those boxing combos on the feet, I definitely could see where Marcin could go in there, stick and move, pick and poke from the outside with the kicks, and kind of like Shara Bullet style. Just, he's kind of a kick first approach kind of guy to where he could win a decision that way. But I like the well-rounded skill set here of Jimmy Crute. And for all that it feels like Jimmy's been through in the UFC, he's 29, man. Not even 30 years of age. Feels like he's 60 in the UFC right now, right? So he's only 29 years of age. I look for Jimmy Crute to get that first W in a long time here over Marcin Prachnio. I think he gets a finish here. I got him by submission in round 2. Next, we have Adam Fugitt versus Islam Dulatov. Now, you might be saying, who's Adam Fugitt? I've never heard of him. And I understand what you mean, so I'll correct that. Adam, fuck it. Now you know who the hell I'm talking about. Now we're on the same page, man. Listen, Adam, fuck it, man, listen. He's not a bad fighter, right? And I know a lot of people are writing him off coming into this one, and that's for good reason, because Islam Dulatov, you talk about, I mean, just a prolific, dangerous finisher. That is what we're looking at here. I mean, this guy, he has been ferocious. We saw in the Contender Series 9 months ago to where he went out there and got a brutal elbow finish over Antunes, and that's just kind of what we've seen throughout this guy's career. Devastating striking on the feet, well-rounded skill set to where if he is able to hurt you, you're in trouble because he does have a well-rounded skill set. I just think that the physicality, the length, the range, and the way that this dude picks his shots, I mean, he's next level, man. He is absolutely next level, and I think we're looking at a real contender here in the welterweight division. But having said all that, Adam Fugitt, man, like Adam Fugitt, you got to be careful. Because I know that, Adam, he's more of a decision merchant, and that's kind of the problem here. Like, I don't really see, at least until he gets into the top of the division, I don't really see guys like an Adam presenting a skill set to where they can go a solid 15 minutes and neutralize what Islam brings to the table, right? That's the deal for me here, right? And he's a guy that came over from LFA, right? Got finished by Michael Morales in the debut, right? Got a nice finish on the ground, right? Gets subbed by Mike Malott. Is coming off of a win over Josh Quinlan. So those two losses since he's been in the UFC are to who? Michael Morales and Mike Malott. Two Mikes, right? So if he's fighting someone named Mike, he's probably going to lose. So if it was Mike Dulatov, I'd be more confident. No, I'm kidding, man. Listen, Islam Dulatov is going to brutally KO Adam Fugitt. I'll say first round probably, right? Maybe it goes into the second round. I just think that this guy, I mean, he's 6'3", got a 75-inch reach, and I know that Fugitt has the reach advantage, but with the height, the speed, the way that Islam picks, sets up his shots, man, this guy is incredibly dangerous. I think that he is one of the scary contenders in this division that is quickly going to climb his way into the rankings here. And while Fugitt is well-rounded, right, I don't think he's a bad fighter. I don't think he's great. I think he's got a pretty well-rounded skill set. If he could weather an early storm, get through that first round, take down Dulatov, stay safe, mix in some ground and pound, I could see a scenario to maybe where he could tire him out or something like that. But it's just, I don't know, man. I think he's getting sniped. I think Islam's coming out in the ghillie suit, going to crawl across lineup, boom, sniper right hand down the middle, and Fugitt's just not even going to see it coming, and he's going to put him out. Give me Dulatov by first round KO, man. Next, we got Adama Gautier versus Robert Valentin. This is when I said to you in the beginning of the video, I'm like, there's some of those fights like the Bruno Ferreira versus Jackson McVey fight. I'm like so confident in my pick, but at the same time, there is this concern for me. And I get it's different because Jackson hasn't fought in the UFC, and Robert, he's shown, right? He's actually a guy that he does have a decent skill set, right? I feel like people are really really overlooking Robert Valentin. I know it hasn't been great. I get that, right? Goes out there, and this wasn't really his fault. It was an absolute snoozer against, the ball sniffer that does absolutely nothing with the takedowns in Torres Finney. The guy that Dana didn't even want to sign, right? Dude's like 5'2", goes in there, big yoked up dude, just going to shoot a bunch of takedowns, hold you. Like, it's kind of hard to be entertaining when a guy wants to do that for 15 minutes, right? But before that, he got finished by Ryan Loder. And to me, I mean, Ryan Loder had a tough outing against Azamat Bakoyev, and it's like, I mean, good thing he didn't have to fight Azamat Murzakanov. He would have gotten starched, but I mean, he still got, beaten up by, Azamat Bakoyev. But look, that's not a great loss. And I know on The Ultimate Fighter, Robert Valentin, he was showing that, he's got some pretty solid striking. He actually has a pretty well-rounded skill set, right? He does have some decent grappling, some submission abilities. But I feel like for him to win this fight, he's got to drag this one out because we're looking at a guy here that, everyone's drawing the Francis Ngannou comparisons here. Adama from Cameroon, and he is a big powerhouse of a dude, man, and his power, it is absolutely devastating. But what I think is actually more scary is this isn't some guy that's just in there throwing these big, reckless, winging, shots here. This is a guy that is picking his opportunities. This is a guy that is seeing what he is throwing. And what I mean by that is he's not just windmilling shots out there. He's setting things up. He is trying to bring your hands down to sneak those shots around the guard. And I think if Robert Valentin is able to extend him into the later rounds, that's where I have questions. Because whenever you got these big, jacked motherfuckers, how does that gas tank play out if we get into the second half of that second round or we get into round 3? The issue, I just don't think we get there, man. I don't think we get there. But like I said, if we do, I very much see Valentin being able to pull off a possible upset here if he can drag this fight out. But that is the big if, because what we've seen from Adama, man, this dude's power is absolutely devastating. And from what we've seen so far, don't sleep on the grappling skills of this guy, at least with the takedown defense, to where I think that's where Robert's going to look to go. He's going to look to pressure him carefully, bounce in and out, land some shots, set up some takedowns, look to grapple, blow those arms up, make him tired, bring him into those later rounds to where he can maybe pull this off. But I just don't think that Robert is able to get to that point. I'm going Adaba by first round knockout. The dude is special, man. He's incredibly dangerous. But like I said, I got some questions on the gas tank, so don't be surprised if Valentin can extend this if he's not able to get this one done. Next, we got Francisco Prado versus Nikolai Veretennikov. Listen, you're going to see OV at the end maybe, and you're like, oh, my pick's locked in. Not so fast. Okay, Nikolai, I'm actually kind of surprised that he's still in the UFC, right? Because after that whole ordeal with Austin Vanderford, right? Vanderford fought over in Bellator. I think he's, dates Paige Van Zandt or something. I mean, he's not a super entertaining fighter, but he's got a good wrestling background. Very good wrestling, good ground and pound, and he was able to put it on Nikolai, get him out of there. And, I don't know what the hell happened in there, but I mean, he was, scuffling after the fight in there. And normally when we see that kind of stuff happen, Dana White doesn't take too kindly to that. So I'm surprised that he's still in the UFC after all that. And I'm actually surprised that they're giving him a winnable fight here against a guy like Francisco Prado, because what we've seen from Nikolai since he's gotten into the UFC, I know he's dangerous on the feet. He has power. He's got a pretty good skill set. Lost to Danny Barlow by decision. That's a good opponent. Lost to Austin Vanderford. And we see a lot of these guys come over from Bellator, PFL. They don't have a tremendous amount of success in their debuts, right? Chandler did, MVP did, but we're seeing a lot of disasters. But again, those guys, they're jumping right into the top of the divisions to where this is a little bit different here, right? Nikolai, Austin Vanderford's still in his prime. So I don't hold that loss too hard against him, but we're seeing that Nikolai has his own grappling issues. And I think Francisco Prado, prior to getting to the UFC, this is a guy that has good power, moves forward. He's got a big old blockhead, right? Kind of like Oban Elliott. These guys got some big ass domes. I don't like this loss here. And I know it was 2.5 years ago to Jamie Malarkey, but I don't like the Jamie Malarkey loss. I know he went out there and KO'd Ottoman Azaitar. He's coming off of 2 L's against Daniel Zellhuber. Again, good prospect in the weight class. Lost to Jake Matthews. And I've said this before. When Jake Matthews shows up, I think he's a top 10 talent in the welterweight division. I think he is. Right? And I know that Nikolai's going to have a little bit of a size and reach advantage here, but I like the ferociousness of Francisco, the pressure he puts on guys, and it's not reckless pressure, right? Sometimes he gets into a little bit of these scraps, these barn burners, but a lot of the time it's technical pressure. He cuts the cage off well, moves forward, gets into that range to where maybe Nikolai sets him up and catches him with a shot. I think this is a very winnable fight for Francisco here. I think he gets back in the win column here with a decision win over Nikolai. But don't be surprised if Nikolai is able to find a shot here, because he does have some good power. But I do think Prado's going to mix this up. He's going to turn this into kind of a dogfight MMA style where it's just gritty, mixing in the takedowns, pressuring him, landing those boxing combos on the inside. Give me Francisco Prado to win a dogfight here over Nikolai by decision. Next, we have, I like this fight here, Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. Now, this is one that was supposed to happen a while ago. They had that run-in at like a casino or something to where, they had a scuffle going on. And so there's a little bit of heat on this one, right? And I like both of these guys in the middleweight division because they represent different things, right? With Brendan Allen, it's, his strikings came a long way, right? Trains over at Killcliff FC, Henry Hooft, and I think Brendan has kind of really molded his own style on the feet. He's showing that he's, he got a good calf kick now. We saw that against Fluffy Hernandez, and we all know he has outstanding jiu-jitsu skills. And look, Brendan Allen's 29 years of age, and the guys that he's losing to, they are top of the food chain. Anthony Hernandez, who's a nightmare for everybody right now, and then he loses to Nasruddin Imavov. I mean, those are two guys that are probably going to be fighting for championships here in the near future. Difficult styles to deal with. The sniper and Imavov, who's very well-rounded. And then Fluffy Hernandez with that crazy pace and grappling. But we saw Allen have moments on the feet. We saw Allen have moments in the grappling. We saw him have moments in the grappling against Imavov. And I feel like those are some big takeaways here, right? Because prior to that, he beat Chris Curtis by split decision, where I thought that one was close. I could have seen that one going, to Chris Curtis. Submitted Paul Craig. Submitted Bruno Silva. I think Brendan Allen is the better overall fighter here. The thing that makes me nervous is Brendan Allen, he doesn't necessarily have a ton of power on the feet. I know he's improved on the feet, and he doesn't have the most volume. I think he's improved there, but I think that the issue in this fight here, Marvin Vettori can out-volume him, right? We saw Marvin Vettori go out there and put it on Paulo Costa, right? Lost to Robert Whittaker, got just dominated. went out there, beat Roman Dolidze. People thought Roman won this fight. I mean, I gave it to Vettori, but we saw that evolution in the game of Vettori, throwing more leg kicks, went to Thailand, has been implementing more, things into his game, right? And that, I feel like he's kind of paid for that a little bit, right? Got completely dominated by Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier was running up the scoreboard on this dude, man. I mean, setting records on Marvin Vettori's dome. Then he goes out there, gets beat up by Roman Dolidze in a 5-round main event in the Apex, and I'm going to be honest, that might have been the worst performance of Marvin's career. It probably was, because I think Roman's good, but I don't think he's that damn good to go out there and dominate Vettori. Like, it just looked like Vettori didn't want it, right? And Vettori's coming up on 32 years of age, right? He seems like kind of a goofball from what I've seen on social media, hanging out, clowning around an American Top Team. And I'd said this dude looks like Reptar from the Rugrats. He's just kind of like, big dopey Vettori, man. He moves forward. He's got a granite chin. He's got a pretty good ground game. I know his wrestling's not the best. He's got good takedown defense. His boxing's not great, but it's, kind of there. He can put volume out there. I could very much see him stopping the takedowns, keeping this on the feet, and outworking Brendan Allen to win a decision. But that was the Marvin Vettori in the past. This new Vettori, who doesn't like to move forward, likes to skirt around on the outside and try to be this fancy kickboxer now, I feel like that guy definitely loses this fight, and I think that's the guy that we're going to see, because I feel like Vettori's made those changes after the ass whooping he took against Jared Cannonier. So I think Brendan Allen wins this fight by decision. I like the technicalities that we've seen in terms of the striking from Brendan Allen. I think he's improved. I like his striking, the straight shots down the middle. And when it comes to the ground game, I mean, unless Vettori can take him down, control him, get into a top position and stay safe, I mean, that's a lot to ask, in my opinion, for 15 minutes, because we know that Allen has excellent jiu-jitsu. He can reverse positions really well. And if you're having, good grappling exchanges with Fluffy Hernandez, I don't think Vettori has shit on Fluffy when it comes to the grappling. So to me, I think Marvin's just kind of I don't even think he's really a guy that should be ranked in the middleweight division. I think Allen is a step ahead of Vettori here. I got Brendan by decision. But like I said, if Vettori comes out pissed off, motivated, moves forward, kind of channels that old Vettori and just puts the volume out there, I think Vettori could outscore him and win a decision, but I think that the durability of Vettori will save him here, and I think Allen is, maybe he can find a submission, going to be hard. I think the well-roundedness of Brendan Allen, picking and poking from the outside, give me Brendan Allen in a 15-minute fight by decision. Next, we got Kyler Phillips versus Vinny Oliveira. I love this fight, man. This is an amazing matchup here, booked by the UFC, and it's an interesting one because Kyler Phillips, the Matrix, right? And that describes his style. This guy training over at the MMA lab, he's 5'8", got a 72-inch reach, and he's dynamic. He's flashy. He's fast. He's explosive. And early in the fight, you got to be very careful if you're Oliveira, right? And I know Vinny's he's a guy that likes to meet fire with fire, right? But what we've seen from Vinny in his career is the way that you beat this guy is by getting to him early and knocking him out. And if there's a guy that is another prospect in this weight class that could cause him some problems, I could see it being someone like a Kyler Phillips, who's very explosive. And we know about the Song win, right? Comes out there, loses to Raulian Paiva. And I was like, okay, right? That was the guy that Sean O'Malley dotted up, right? Marcelo Rojo submitted him, beat Hani Barcelos. And listen, we're seeing Barcelos is actually pretty good. Beat Talbot, beat Garbrandt, goes out there, beats Pedro Munoz, and he's coming off of a loss to Rob Font. But again, Rob Font's Mr. Prospect Killer, right? He's the guy that, the old dog that you throw in there with the young guy and he pulls off the upset, right? That's who Rob Font is. Good boxer, good defense, good pace, good jab that he can put on you. Where Vinny Oliveira, this is a different matchup. This is a guy that ever since coming into the UFC, he has been dangerous, man. Fought over in UAE Warriors, super dangerous. Got that brutal finish on the Contender Series and in the debut against Bernardo Sopai. That flying knee, that was devastating, right? That was the flying knee heard around the world. This clip was everywhere. He went viral and got some swag going, right? Then goes out there and beats Ricky Simone. How well that wins age, right? Because we're seeing Ricky Simone, hey, man, he went out there and he starched Basharat, and he's coming off of a win over, who did he just beat? He beat Cameron Smotherman on short notice. Smotherman ended up stepping in. So Ricky Simone's finding that second win, right? Goes out there, beats Said Nurmagomedov. And I thought Said Nurmagomedov was going to win this fight, right? Said Nurmagomedov is very good on the feet, very good grappling, good submission skills, and very well-rounded. And I thought that maybe that was a little too much too soon for Vinny Oliveira. I know Oliveira's explosive, but to go a hard 15 minutes with him, landing some good leg kicks, mixing things up. He throws big, powerful shots on the feet. He's super dangerous. I like this fight, man. I think that this is a head-on collision waiting to happen. Give me Vinny Oliveira by decision, though. Maybe someone gets a finish early here. Maybe, in the first round, if Phillips can put something on him, he's fast. He's kind of, tricky in there. He can kind of catch you off guard. Maybe Kyler can land a shot. But as this fight plays out, we have clearly seen that Vinny, he's a dog, man. He's a dog. He's skilled. He's well-rounded, has finishing ability. The best way to get after Oliveira is to get to him early before he can get rolling, because once he makes his reads, once he finds that flow, once he kind of just gets settled in there, this guy is just an avalanche waiting to happen. Give me Vinny Oliveira by decision. I think that he's just a better fighter at this point in time. But again, don't sleep on Kyler Phillips because he is a very game opponent and very wild in there. So this is going to be a fun fight, though. I got Vinny, though. Next, we got Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. I'm going Daniel Zellhuber. I'm going to say by second round knockout. Listen, I know that Michael Johnson, you talk about one of the weirdest fighters in UFC history, that's Michael Johnson. Mike Johnson is the kind of guy who will go out there, knock out Dustin Poirier, and then go out there and lose to some guy that's never fought in their life. Like Michael Johnson, it's just strange. This guy's career, he's got some amazing wins on his resume. Amazing wins. And he's got some losses. You're like, how the hell did you lose to that guy? Right? And then if you throw a big winging overhand right, you can knock out Michael Johnson. That's been the kryptonite of his career. Right? Over this last stretch, lost to Jamie Malarkey, beat Mark Jacasey. I was there for that fight. Lost to Diego Ferreira. There comes that big overhand right. If you throw that, that's been the kryptonite for Johnson, but he stacked 2 in a row. Beat Darius Flowers, knocked out Ataman Zaitar. And the one thing about Mike Johnson that has really kept, that he's been able to keep throughout his career as he's getting into, towards the end here at 39 years of age, he's got a wealth of experience, and that hand speed has not slowed down whatsoever. Mike Johnson, he's got the faster hands here, I'd say. I think he's got fast hands. He throws nice combinations, picks his shots well, right? And that left hand, it's fast, right? We saw him land that thing on Khabib. We saw him land it on Poirier. If Mike Johnson lands clean, he can put anybody out in this weight class just about. The left hand, it's special, man, for Mike Johnson. It's fast, it's sneaky, and when it lands, it hurts guys. So I could very much see him going in there, putting that savvy veteran style on display, letting the hand speed go, winning the outside foot battle, lining up that left hand, and rocking Daniel Zellhuber. Here's the issue. We saw the last time out at Sphere, Daniel Zellhuber, he was in the fight of the year, in my opinion, against Esteban Ribovic, where he lost by split decision, and I thought that fight could have went for Daniel Zellhuber. That was an absolute war. Those are, by the way, how good is Esteban Ribovic? He's a dangerous guy in this weight class, good power, super explosive, and I think Esteban Ribovic, he probably beats Michael Johnson, right? So I feel like that was a good opponent to kind of get Daniel Zellhuber ready here. But ever since, since he's been in the UFC, lost to Trey Ogden. But again, Ogden's frame, he's a difficult opponent. He beat Landon, right? Beat Christos Giagos, got the win over Francisco Prado. And look, I think that there's very much a case to where Michael Johnson could go out there and he could put it on Daniel Zellhuber. But I just think that the technicalities is Daniel Zellhuber. He's got good boxing. He's well coached over at Extreme Couture, with Eric Nixick. They put together good game plans. He'll come in, he'll be prepared, and, I think that he should win this fight. And I actually don't know if he finds a KO. I'm actually going to say decision here. Maybe he finds a finish, but we've seen, unless you land that big winging right hand down the middle, which that's not really how Zellhuber throws his shots. He throws those, he's very technical with his striking, which is great. But the shot that's been catching Johnson is that big winging overhand. Maybe he breaks that out in this fight. Maybe he just snipes him with the right hand. But I think the savviness of Johnson, the footwork, cutting his angles, I actually think he might give Zellhuber some issues in this fight. But I think that Zellhuber will outscore him. I think that the volume will be on his side. He's got the youth on his side. He's a dog. He's tough. And I think that he has good technical striking. Give me Daniel Zellhuber. And he's got a well-rounded skill set. Does have some submissions in his back pocket. So if he's able to hurt Johnson, maybe he could jump on a sub. But I'm going to go Daniel Zellhuber by decision here. But like I said, don't sleep on Michael Johnson because still at 39 years of age, he still has very good hand speed. Next, we got Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. Now, I was surprised at how easy Yair made work of Patricio in Pitbull's debut, right? And I thought, listen, Patricio, I've been saying for a while over in Bellator /PFL that, look, this is one of the better fighters that we've ever seen in that promotion. He's got a powerful right hand. He picks his shots very well. He's a very well-rounded fighter, and we all know about the KO over Michael Chandler. That's kind of the claim to fame for Pitbull at this point, and he's a multiple weight champion at 145, at 155, and he's done a lot in his career, man. But he's 38 years of age, right? We're not getting this prime vintage Pitbull, Patricio Pitbull here, right? And a lot of these wins, right? Like he was able to beat Kleber, and it's like, who cares? Who's Kleber, right? He loses to Sergio Pettis, a smaller, faster guy, and Patricio had no business being down on the weight class, right? He cut way too much weight to get down to bantamweight. I don't know if he was just looking for more missions, got finished by Suzuki, beat Jeremy Kennedy, and it's like, who's Jeremy Kennedy, right? Then he's coming off of just a completely one-sided ass-whooping against Yair Rodriguez, too, but he landed some decent shots, right? And Yair's a tough matchup, right? That's a very hard fight for Patricio. 5'11" Yair, lightning fast on the outside, decent submission game. That's a hard matchup, right? And Yair was obviously motivated because apparently the UFC said, we'll give you a title shot if you get a win. The problem for Pitbull in this fight is his lack of output, right? I think that he definitely has the ability to hurt Dan Ige, but when has Dan Ige ever been finished? He doesn't get finished, doesn't get knocked out. Dan Ige's got a granite chin, man. And he's been in there with like the who's who in this weight class. He's been in there with Diego Lopez on 2-hour notice, fought tooth and nail with him, was putting it on him in the final, round. Right? Was in there and had a great performance against Sean Woodson, a tricky, long, rangy grasshopper, right? And Sean Woodson, who's just built so damn weird for the weight class. I don't know how he makes 145. Dan Ige was able to beat him up to the body, bring the hands down, knock him out. It was a questionable stoppage, right? Probably an early stoppage, but still, it was a great performance by Ige. He was up on the scorecards. Loses to Lerone Murphy, dropped him, right? And Lerone Murphy, we're seeing how good he is. He's a complete mixed martial artist in this weight class. The Diego Lopez fight, like we just mentioned, KO'd Andre Fili, lost to Bryce Mitchell by decision, but we know about Bryce Mitchell, what he brings to the table. Length, range, good grappling. Patricio Pitbull does have a good ground game, but is it going to trouble Dan Ige in this fight? I don't think so. Dan Ige, I think, has more power than Patricio Pitbull. We've seen Dan Ige hurt a number of guys. I think Dan Ige wins this fight. I don't think that he's able to KO Patricio Pitbull because Pitbull's actually really durable. But for me, this ultimately comes down to activity, activity, activity. For every one shot that Patricio is going to throw, I just think Ige is going to throw 5, 6, 7, 8 shots ahead of him. He's just going to be ahead of him. The whole night, I think. Ige switches stances very well. Trains over to Extreme Couture, right? Works those shifting combinations with Eric Nixick on the pads. And I like Ige, man. He's got power in his hands. He's got a very good ground game as well. Good submission abilities, right? So I don't think really the ground game comes into play here. I think that this is on the feet, and Patricio's too patient. He waits for that shot, and it's worked out a lot in his career where guys come running in, they lunge, and he's able to counter them. Ige doesn't lunge. Keeps his hands up, bobs and weaves, good hand positioning. I just don't see Pitbull landing that shot, and I feel like that's what he needs in order to win this fight. And given that Ige's been in there with a lot of really game opponents in this weight class at 33 years of age, I think Ige is kind of still in his prime at this point where Pitbull, he is no longer in his prime. I think that the activity, the output, and the power will discourage Patricio, and he will just be waiting to land that one shot that he won't land at all in this fight. Give me Dan Ige by decision. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. This is a fight that was supposed to happen back at UFC 279 on the Diaz versus Chimaev card. And, we had the Chimaev weight miss, and it shuffled the whole card around to where Holland fought Hamzat, and then D-Rod fought, the Leech. And, I couldn't wait for this fight back at that time, and I'm still excited for this fight. Right now, it's been a few years, and we've seen some different things, right? D-Rod, to me, has definitely slowed down. At least that's what I thought. Right? Got finished by Neil Magny by submission. Got head kick KO'd by Ian Gary, but Ian set him up beautifully to the body, then brought it upstairs, lost to Kelvin Gastelum, but that was good. Kelvin's fat ass missed weight by an entire weight class, so D-Rod was fighting, I think, at middleweight, right? And he's not a damn middleweight, and Kelvin just weaponized the size by taking him down and laying on him for 15 minutes, right? What a dick move, right? Goes out there, beats Alex Morono by split decision. Right? Not a big fan of that there. And then he goes out there and finishes Santiago Ponzinibbio. And look, we knew someone was going to get finished in that fight. It was going to be a matter of will Ponzinibbio land that big ooga booga shot, or will Rodriguez ultimately get to him? And it was D-Rod who got to him. At this point in their careers, D-Rod is pushing 39 years of age. Kevin Holland is 32, almost 33. And listen, Kevin Holland is a super hard matchup in the welterweight division. 6'3", 81-inch reach, and I think he's got the longest reach in the weight class. I mean, he has a middleweight reach, basically like the reach of Adesanya at 170 pounds. And the one thing about Kevin Holland, he can defend takedowns very well at 170. We're seeing that, right? And his losses, if you look back on his record, man, like his losses, they're not even that horrible, right? The Roman Dolidze fight, he got hurt, but Dolidze's a big guy, good grappler, right? Lost to Khamzat Chimaev. Look how good Khamzat is. Lost to Reinier de Ridder, right? I mean, you know, like, okay, so he's losing to dangerous guys, right? And then when you give him a Gunnar Nelson, he beats up on him. You give him a Vicente Luque, he subbed him, which was very impressive. And I've doubted Holland a lot. I really have. But the thing that I've really began to realize is that 170, he can stop the takedowns. And on the feet, he can strike with just about anybody. Kevin Holland, he rolls with shots really well. He's rangy, gets out of the way. He's tricky. He's dynamic, right? He's got crazy power in that straight right hand. When he lands it, he's got that weird looping left hook. I mean, he throws weird shots from odd angles, and he is super relaxed in there. He fights all the damn time. I think that Kevin Holland, this is the perfect matchup for him. Fighting these older guys that, you know, D-Rod is good. He's got good boxing, solid movement, way too hittable for me. I could see Kevin Holland rocking him, and we're seeing at 170 pounds, Kevin is just a different dude when it comes to the grappling, man. He does have very good submission skills. He really does. He really does. He's got those long limbs to where he could easily tie in a Darce, reach for an anaconda. I mean, he is a very dangerous guy in this weight class, and I know people don't like to admit it, because Holland, you know, he's kind of just been like hot and cold, and he went on that run at middleweight, won 5 fights in a year. This guy's active. He's constantly in there, and I think that he is a guy that is in his prime right now where D-Rod is not. I'm going to go Kevin Holland by second-round knockout. I think that maybe he hurts him and gets a submission, but I do think Kevin Holland finishes this fight. I think D-Rod is way too hittable, man. He is. I could see Holland sniping him with that straight right down the middle, catching him with a hook on the way in. I think D-Rod maybe even will look to initiate the clinch, the grappling, because of the speed and range of Kevin. He's going to have to get to the inside. He's going to be moving like this, and I could just see Holland timing him with that right hand and being able to put him down. And we know that the submission skills of Kevin are good, especially against a guy like D-Rod. Give me Kevin Holland by finish in this fight. I think that he makes this one actually look pretty easy. These are the kind of guys that Kevin Holland always beats, man. Co-main event, we have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. This is going to be a banger because every time Paulo Costa fights, his fights are entertaining. They are. Whether he wins or loses, they're always entertaining. And Roman Kopylov, whether he wins or loses, all of his fights are entertaining. Both of these guys, this is going to be a straight kickboxing fight. At least I think it is. Maybe we see some grappling from Costa after he's getting beat up by Kopylov. Maybe we see Kopylov start to fatigue, looks to clinch up here. Both guys have a pretty decent ground game, especially Costa. Costa's got good jiu-jitsu. The problem is Paulo, he's a big guy for the weight class in terms of his reach. If he's got T-Rex arms in the middleweight division, 72-inch reach, probably the shortest reach on the roster, right? But he's a big, powerful guy, right? On the broadcast, I mean, I don't think Rogan's commentating this fight, but if he was, oh my God, the physique of Paulo Costa, he's chiseled out of stone. You know, we know how Rogan would be going, but that's what people talk about with Costa. Oh, he's jacked. You know, he's got power, but does he? He's got power in his kicks, right? We saw him land that spinning wheel kick on Robert Whittaker, was able to hurt him. You know, he's more of a volume guy. That's how he's gotten guys out of there. Remember, he walked down Yoel Romero. That's not the same Costa anymore. Ever since losing to Israel Adesanya, we've seen a completely different guy. Paulo Costa's not, you know, flat-footed, moving forward, trying to pressure you the whole fight anymore. He's very much changed his style to be more of this, you know, karate, taekwondo guy where he's bouncing around on the outside to where he's actually looked pretty good in a lot of these fights, man. Like, he didn't look good against Vettori, missed weight. They had to move it up a weight class. That was a disaster. Beat Luke Rockhold, but got into a dogfight with a Luke Rockhold that didn't even want to be in there. And this is a southpaw again here. Rockhold was landing a lot of good kicks. That straight left hand was tagging him all night long. You don't think Kopylov's going to be doing that? Right? And then went out there and got beat up by Robert Whittaker in the last 2 rounds. But in round 1, he landed that nasty spinning wheel kick, was landing some good leg kicks, right? And Robert Whittaker's damn good. We know that. Goes out there, loses a split decision to Sean Strickland to where he was, you know, on his bike the whole time. Strickland was moving forward, checking kicks, throwing teeps and you know, a jab the whole fight. So it's hard to have a good fight with Strickland because he stays so defensively responsible and doesn't put anything out there. Right, but Paulo Costa, he showed that he could go 25 minutes, right? There were a lot of questions about his gas tank. We even saw that in the Vettori fight. He's got powerful kicks, man. He really does. He's got powerful kicks, and it's going to be that open stance battle, orthodox versus southpaw here, to where Costa's going to be blasting kicks to the body, trying to bring him upstairs, as is Kopylov. He's going to be doing the same thing. That rear kick is going to be a major weapon in this fight. Costa's got, decent boxing. He throws these big, wild hooks. He drops his hands. He gets very defensively irresponsible, and a lot of that is because he relies on his durability. This guy's tough as hell, man. Outside of getting finished by Izzy, which was a perfectly timed shot on the back of the ear, and Izzy just picked him apart, just broke him. Right? He couldn't get to Izzy. That was prime Izzy, man. That was an amazing masterclass by Adesanya there. Right? But what we've seen from Costa, the reality is he doesn't have a win over a guy on the UFC right now. In the UFC right now. He does not have a win over any current middleweight right now, man. He doesn't. And the way that Costa was winning these fights, he was marching down Yoel Romero, getting in his face, landing good shots, right? That's not the same guy anymore. The way he broke Uriah Hall. Marching you down, wilting you with pressure. That's not his style, and he's going to have to break that out to have a chance in this fight, and that's the problem. He's going to be running into the danger zone here because Roman Kopylov, this dude's dangerous, man. Got the head kick KO over Claudio Ribeiro. Finished his Josh Frem. Lost to Fluffy Hernandez, but totally different style. Fluffy Hernandez will mix in the grappling. Has dangerous submissions. Got crazy pace and pressure. Beat Cesar Almeida by split decision. Got the finish over Chris Curtis to where that was still a pretty solid fight there, right? And a questionable stoppage at the end. But, dude, Roman Kopylov's dangerous. Good straight shots down the middle. Fast on the feet. Dangerous kicks. They're fast and they're powerful. They're snappy. The thing that worries me for Kopylov in this fight, though, is the gas tank. We've seen that the longer he goes in a fight, he does slow down. And Paulo Costa will not slow down. For 15 minutes, Costa will maybe have a dip towards the end of the first round, maybe towards the second, but he gets that second win, man. He comes off the stool ready to go. He will not wilt. Paulo Costa's fast in terms of the kicks. And now he's, lighter. He's shed off, still, jacked, but he's not as big and bulky to where he's a lot more nimble, moving in and out of range. He needs volume to win. That's how Costa beats guys. Backs you up against the fence, and that's how he lands his best shots. Lands kicks out in space, lands a little bit of a jab, but Costa does his best work when you're up against the fence, and we don't see him do it anymore. So unless he's able to come out old school Costa, move forward, get in the face of Kopylov, pressure him, get him up against the fence, and let his shots go, he ain't winning this fight, man. And I think Paulo Costa gets KO'd in this. I really do. I think it's going to be in round 3. I think that, first round, I think it's going to be close. I think you're going to see Kopylov kind of measured, right? Knowing Costa's got good kicks. They're going to be kind of going back and forth with the kicks. But eventually you're going to see the timing of Kopylov start to get there. That jab's going to start to land. Then the left hand's going to follow. He's going to start to time Costa. And look, Costa loves a dogfight, man. He got into a dogfight with Luke Rockhold. And I knew Luke Rockhold at one point was unbelievable, but not when Costa fought him. He was at times you saw him fighting with himself. He's just man, I don't want to do this. And he was landing good kicks to the body. Landing that left hand at will against Costa. Kopylov, that Rockhold that fought Costa, that doesn't hold a candle to what Kopylov is right now. A dangerous, fast striker. Good straight shots down the middle. Brutal kicks. And Costa can take punishment. He absolutely can. But if he comes into this fight and doesn't try to grapple, because if he does grapple, he'll tire himself out. We've seen that. He carries around all that muscle. I think he'll blow his arms up, and then that's even worse almost, because then Costa's not really a threat to finish you on the ground, even though he does have good jiu-jitsu. We really haven't seen it in MMA much. It's the kicks, it's the power. Kopylov is the better striker here. He's fast, throws good straight shots down the middle, and Costa, if he comes into this trying to be aggressive, I think it might look good at first, but then he gets finished. But if he could drag it into those later rounds, and maybe if Kopylov's gas tank does fade, maybe Costa puts it on him and, could get a TKO. Maybe it's just a decision win here for Kopylov, but I think the damage of Roman is going to add up, man. I think he's able to get Costa out of there because Chris Curtis, say what you want about him, I know he just had a close fight with Max Griffin down at welterweight, but he's pretty good defensively. Pretty good defensively, man. And I just think that Costa's defensively irresponsible. He's taken a lot of damage, and I know that he's not the most active fighter, but Kopylov is a dangerous guy in this weight class, man. Super fast on the feet, good combinations, good straight shots. I think he puts a beating on Paulo Costa in this fight. And I'm a Costa fan. I'd like to see Costa pull it off, get back in the win column. I just think it's a stretch here. Kopylov's a hard fight. It's going to be a fun fight, but I think it's going to be Costa getting his ass beat, unfortunately, and probably finished. Last but not least, we got the main event between Dustin the Diamond Poirier and Max Holloway. Now, Listen, man, I'm a massive fan of both of these guys, as most of us are. And I do believe that Dustin Poirier is the better boxer. I'll always believe that. And I know that Max Holloway's made some good improvements, and he's got good hands as well. And he's definitely right up there in terms of the boxing with DP. But just what we've seen throughout their careers, the fight number one, it's almost like you can't even really talk about it. Both guys were so young, and they just completely changed since then. In fight two, there's a little bit of an asterisk to a degree, right? Because Max took it on short notice. He was muffin top Max. He was fat, went up to 55, put on just dumb weight, and, his body looked like shit in that fight. I'm not going to lie. It did. He looked flabby, right? And he was just kind of moseying forward into range, getting cracked by that left hand of Poirier, that counter right hand, and, Dustin was putting it on him, right? There was a clear power advantage on the side of Dustin Poirier, but keep in mind, Dustin was a guy that was establishing himself in the 55 division at that point, to where Max was clearly a featherweight. He was clearly a featherweight, right? And it was a big opportunity to move up weight classes, win that second title, even though it was, the interim one. So both of these guys have made some advancements. But if you're going to ask me who's made a lot of them, Max Holloway's a completely different fighter since fight two, where Dustin, he's improved his ground game, I'd say, especially his takedown defense. We saw that against Islam. I think that obviously Dustin's boxing and defense and things like that, they've tightened up. But I just feel like we've seen Dustin slow down just a little bit. Not a lot, but I think he slowed down a little bit. And I know he went into an absolute war with Islam, about a year ago. Right, and he definitely lost the fight, got submitted, right? It's not like he was winning the fight or anything up until the submission, but he was putting up a much better fight than what people were expecting. Went out there, knocked out Benoit Saint-Denis, and I told you guys, man, I was not high on Benoit Saint-Denis. I saw this coming a mile away. Poirier's got excellent boxing. Benoit Saint-Denis has zero boxing defense. That was a recipe for a disaster for BSD. Got head kick KO'd by Gaethje, but Poirier was looking good up until that. Right, submitted Michael Chandler, got hurt in this fight, though. Right, and then got subbed by Charles Oliveira, but was able to drop him. And we know about the Conor McGregor fights. Listen, Dustin Poirier is outstanding boxing. He's going to come into this. He wants a war. Right, he's going to try to get to that calf kick. I know it's an open stance battle. Poirier's a southpaw. Max is an orthodox fighter. They both switch at times. Right, Poirier's going to try to land that calf kick by throwing that left hand out there, throwing that leg kick, trying to hinder the movement of Max, but good luck. Right, Max Holloway, I know people want to talk about this loss to Ilia Topuria. By the time it's all said and done, Ilia just might be the greatest, or definitely one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen. Elite boxing skills, devastating power, incredibly well-rounded skill set. And I told you he was going to KO Max. I wasn't surprised one bit, but Max looked pretty good in that fight. Right, but he bulked up, went up to 55, put on a masterclass against Gaethje, got the KO at 300, came back down. I was excited for the fight, but I figured that was a little bit of a mess, considering, the weight cut again, but not so much that, just how good Ilia is. But this performance right here against Gaethje, it told me everything we need to know. Max Holloway, he's a 55er. He should be a 55. He should have came up a while ago. His frame, the way he filled out against Gaethje, he looked fantastic in there, man. His speed, his timing, his rhythm, his elusiveness, his footwork. The way he was seeing things, the way he was playing with Gaethje, right? And I picked Holloway to finish Gaethje in this fight. I remember people called me a fucking idiot. They said I was a casual. I didn't know what I was talking about. Right now I got lucky because it was in the final seconds, but I said that he was going to pick him apart. It was the speed. That's how you frustrate Poirier, or Gaethje, is with speed, but guess who you can also frustrate with speed and footwork? DP. You can frustrate DP with footwork, with timing, with speed. Max has all those things. Dustin's coming into this. Look, he's going to lay it all on the line. I think that you're going to have to put Dustin out in order to win this fight. In terms of to get him to stop moving forward or whatever. Like, Dustin will get battered beyond belief to do anything it takes to win this fight. I believe that. This is his last dance, man. He's coming in. He knows he's prepared. He's went to that dark place to old camp. Started, his camp before the camp even begun. He's motivated. He looks like he's in unbelievable shape. He's got outstanding boxing. And I still think that he does have the power advantage. The problem is this. The elusive style that we see from Max now, it's a problem for DP because it's going to frustrate Dustin. Dustin's going to get frustrated. He's going to try to close him down. He's going to get irritated. And when he starts to do that, that is when Max becomes very dangerous. We saw Zombie chase him and got knocked out. We saw Justin, every time he would chase, Max would sting him and hurt him. Even other than the KO, he was hurting Gaethje a lot, man. That spinning back kick, right? And I know that this is different because Poirier is a southpaw, but I still think that Dustin's power is something to watch. I think he's going to be looking to dig to the body, right? We saw Ilia do that, and I was saying that's what Ilia was going to do. Dustin does a good job of that, digging to the body, throwing that right hook, straight left hand. He's got a good pull counter on the left hand, got a good right hook. And remember, Dustin's a right-handed guy, so that's his power hand in the front. He's going to try to time the jab of Holloway. Max likes to kind of, pick and, pot shot from the outside, throw that right hand to the body. DP is going to try to pick him off with the right hook. I expect Holloway to anticipate that. They're going to try to counter the counters of Poirier. I think the speed, the technicalities, and the evolution in the style of Max Holloway is going to be a problem for Dustin in this fight. I am going to go Max Holloway by decision here. I think that Max is if anyone gets TKO'd in this fight, I think that it would be Dustin. I think that Max, it would be DP getting frustrated, chasing, trying to recklessly pressure to where he gets clipped with a shot by Holloway and put out, but it's going to take a lot to get Dustin out of there in this fight, man. I feel like Dustin is just going to, he's going to have some plot armor in this fight, man. He is. He's coming in with a robot suit and a helmet on. So I don't know that a finish happens. I think that we do get a classic here, but I think it's going to be more of a classic in terms of, I don't think it's going to be so much a war, but it's going to be it's going to be Poirier trying to have a war, and it's going to be Holloway picking his spots to do that, but mainly just kind of picking apart from range, utilizing good footwork. His defense is improved. Don't hold your hat on the Topuria loss, man. Because Ilya, in my opinion, as much as I love DP, I'm a huge DP fan. Ilya KOs DP. He does. Ilya KOs Gaethje. He KOs most of these guys, man. So don't hold your hat on that. Right? And Holloway was having a lot of moments in that fight. Don't forget what he did when he moved up and fought Justin Gaethje. Right? And before that, knocking out the Korean Zombie, beating Arnold Allen. And that's really where we saw that evolution in the style, was after the third loss to Alexander Volkanovski. We saw him a lot more fluent with the switching of stances, being okay on the back foot, lateral movement. That version of Max Holloway, this new version, I think it's very hard for Dustin Poirier to beat this guy. He's going to have to get to the inside, turn it into a kind of a dirty, in-the-pocket boxing match, and that is where DP can win this fight. But it's also where Max Holloway can win this fight. I think Max has more tools. He's the guy that has, DP's riding off into retirement here. He's done it all at this point, right? He's got all the money. He wants that BMF belt, I know that. So obviously he's motivated here. He's coming in. This is his last one. Max has options moving forward in the division. He wants to go on a title run at 55, something he hasn't done. I think that the speed, the footwork, the timing, it's going to frustrate Dustin, and that is ultimately going to lead to Max outscoring him and winning a decision. And if Dustin gets too reckless, I could very much see Max clipping him with a shot. But like I said, DP needs to make it a gritty boxing match, get to the inside and let those power hooks and uppercuts go, and then he gives himself a chance for sure. Can never count Dustin out. Maybe looks to grapple a little bit, right? Because we've seen in their fights, even in fight 2, Dustin seems to have the edge there, but Max, his takedown defense has gotten much better since obviously fight number 1 between the two. I think we're in for a kickboxing fight for 25 minutes. Give me Max Holloway by decision. I don't want to see DP lose. I don't want to see Max lose. I hate that I have to pick somebody, but I do think Max is able to edge this one out, man. I'm a massive fan of both of these guys. Love DP, a guy that, I take a lot of inspiration from both of these guys even. It's going to be a banger. Super excited for it. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.